Make sure we get everybody in. At this time, we are asking for you guys to keep your cameras and mics off so we could just have it for the speaker today. Just going to go in here and do these things. All right. Give everyone 20 more seconds here. Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to another great workshop, Building GenAI Applications with Amazon Bedrock. And we are here today with Emil Basil. So we're so excited to have you, Emil, and go ahead and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Aubrey. Thank you, everyone, for joining. My name is Emil Basil. I'm a blockchain solutions architect at AWS. I've been here for over 5 years at this point. Prior to here, I was doing Solidity development over at Consensus, and then have been mostly working as a blockchain architect since joining AWS. And thank you, ETH Global, for this opportunity to participate in this hackathon. At AWS, we've been doing a lot of work over the last couple of years in generative AI and more recently in agentic workflows. And so everything that we're going to be talking about here and everything that this hackathon is about is really close to what we are doing at AWS. And we're always excited to see what developers build with the tools and the products and services which we develop. So today we're going to be talking about Amazon Bedrock and Bedrock agents. But to start off, I want to give a high-level overview of how we view generative AI and how we're incorporating it across our stack. So here we have a sort of 3-layer stack of different levels of integration with generative AI. So at the top, you have user-facing applications. You have Amazon Q Developer, for example. This is a coding assistant. It plugs into VS Code, other IDEs, which you may be using. In the middle, we have Amazon Bedrock, which is what we're going to be talking about today. And then at the bottom is for machine learning engineers. So if you're building a model from the ground up, you would use Amazon SageMaker, a broad choice of different hardware, which you want to run that on. But that's for a different day. Today, we're going to be talking about that middle piece with Amazon Bedrock. So Amazon Bedrock is a fully managed service that offers a choice of foundation models from leading AI companies such as AI21, Amazon, Anthropic, Meta, and many other ones, with a broad set of capabilities to build many different types of generative AI applications, and a big focus on really simplifying development while maintaining privacy and security. So Amazon Bedrock is fully managed. It's serverless, so you don't have to worry about any of the infrastructure. You access it via APIs, you access it via SDKs. Very easy to get started and build with there. And with Amazon Bedrock, you can easily experiment with a variety of these models, and you can customize them privately with your data or using external data, either via fine-tuning or retrieval augmented generation, or RAG. And you can create managed agents for executing complex business tasks, such as booking travel or processing insurance claims or other things like that. And all of that can be done without writing any code. I assume this being a hackathon, people will want to get into the code, but just to give you an idea of the building blocks which we are providing, you could go into the AWS console, click a few things, enter a few things, and have an agent that is running that can crawl a website and answer questions about it and things like that. Cool. Get this. Get my PowerPoint set up. There we go. Okay, next slide. So we speak to a lot of customers at AWS, and what we hear a lot is that what the most important feature to them of Bedrock is how easy it is to experiment with different foundation models and having a range of models to experiment with. Customers are moving fast in this space, and generative AI itself is evolving very, very quickly, and there's new options and innovations happening almost daily. And just last week, we saw the market turned on its head with DeepSeek R1. And we moved very quickly, and now DeepSeek is available within Bedrock. I'll get to that towards the end. So the space is moving very quickly. Everyone knows this, and Bedrock is really a great way to easily test out different models and experiment without having to do a lot of heavy lifting to change that. Again, everything's via APIs, and so so if you're changing a model, for example, you're basically just changing the label of the model which you want to invoke. Cool. I do want to touch on two families of models. The first is Anthropic Claude models. These have been out for over a year now. I think they're almost a year, I should say. And these are familiar to many people. Claude 3.5 Sonnet really raises the bar on like industry intelligence and in benchmarks for graduate level reasoning. And you got Claude 3 Opus, which is the most intelligent model, and 3 Sonnet and 3 Haiku, with 3 Haiku being the fastest and most cost-effective. And that's really good for sort of high volume use cases. So it's really dependent on the type of application which you are looking to build. Again, testing with any of these is very straightforward to switch between them. And prior to reInvent, which for those of you who don't know, it's our annual conference that takes place right after Thanksgiving, we had the Amazon Titan model family of large language models. And at reInvent, we announced the Amazon Nova Foundation models. And these are new generative generation, these are state-of-the-art foundation models that deliver frontier intelligence and industry-leading price performance. And so Nova includes a couple types of models. So there are understanding models, which are these ones on the left, and these accept text and image and video as input, and they generate text as output. And on the right side, you have creative content generation models. So these accept text and image input, and they generate image or video output. And Nova models are available only on Amazon Bedrock. And the 5 that are available today are Nova Micro, which is a text-only model that delivers the lowest latency responses at very low cost. You have Nova Lite, that's a lower cost multimodal model that is also very fast and is great for lightweight tasks. And then you have Nova Pro, that's a highly capable multimodal model with a good combination of accuracy, speed, and cost. And on the right side, you've got our creative content FMs, foundation models. So Canvas is an image generator using natural language prompts. And then Nova Reel is a video generator, which takes prompts and creates realistic videos from that. And in the middle is Premiere, which is not launched yet, but it will be our most capable multimodal model foundation model. And that's for complex reasoning and also to be used as a best teacher for distilling custom models. So if you're trying to distill down to a smaller model, you can use this one as the starting point from that. And Premiere is coming soon. And as I mentioned earlier, DeepSeek, this slide was added on Friday or over the weekend because that announcement just came out. But as you can see on the right there, that's the AWS console. And now DeepSeek is one of the generation models, one of the foundation models, which you can use within Bedrock. Cool. So we just touched on inference and selecting different LLMs for your inference. Now I want to switch gears and talk about agents. So Amazon Bedrock agents are foundational building blocks for customers and developers to create their own agentic applications. So as we just saw, you can choose from a variety of foundation models to drive the intelligence of the agent. And you can configure the agent with many different features, such as memory retention, knowledge bases for retrieval augmented generation, guardrails for protecting the user and other features as well. And developers provide these agents with additional tools and functionality so that the agents can actually go and achieve their tasks. And If you've ever worked with AWS Lambda functions, that's essentially what a tool is here, is you equip the agent with this capability and you tell it when to invoke this tool. For example, if you want to create a calculator, you just tell the agent, use this thing here, and it's a Lambda function that basically just does simple math or something like that. And an important thing to understand here too is with agents for Bedrock, you get visibility into the chain of thought of the agent. So when you're debugging and you're trying to figure out why your agent isn't doing what you think it should be doing, you can see step by step with all the traces of everything that it's thinking through and why it reached a certain decision, which helps immensely when you're building and debugging. And recently we announced Bedrock agents support hierarchical multi-agent collaboration. So you have what's known as a supervisor agent, and this agent can have its own intelligence and its own tools, but it can also be aware of other agents that can invoke that can be invoked for specific tasks, and you can now have orchestration from this sort of supervisor higher level agent. And these agents can all be used across different orchestration as well. So you can have one sort of sub-agent that's being used by many different supervisor agents. And agents plan and execute these tasks using data which you've provided either from your own private data set or from public data. It can really be driven from many different ways. And as I mentioned earlier, you can start creating agents just from the AWS console. So if you are interested in just seeing what that looks like and setting up a Lambda function, you click through there, and then you get a Lambda function that's a basically hello world dummy function, and then you can easily extend it to do the actual work which you need it to do. Cool. So the way agents work is they essentially break down and orchestrate the task. So when a user gives it a question or a task, the agent thinks through everything which it needs to do, and then it figures out and creates a plan for how it's going to accomplish that task. And to help it accomplish this task, you can allow it to securely access and retrieve data from your company's or project's data sources or anywhere else. And this would be part of retrieval augmented generation to help your agent sort of become more specific to your application. And it can take actions on your behalf. So it can invoke API calls on your behalf. And that's where we get into the action groups and the tooling which you equip your agent with. And then we've got the chain of thought trace and ability, and the ability to modify the agent prompts as it's going through that trace. So we have a default orchestration template for agents, but with a lot of these services, we have a sort of best default. But a lot of what I'm covering here, you can customize it to really tailor it for the application which you're building. So if you're interested in trying out Bedrock and multi-agent collaboration, here's the first of a few QR codes which I'm going to share. This is for the multi-agent, which we just released recently. And some examples which you can see are planning a trip, where you have different agents that specialize in different aspects of planning a trip, building a marketing strategy, and other things like that. And these are all available on GitHub. Cool. And the last thing I want to show is as of this weekend, we got our PR merged into Eliza OS. And so now your Eliza OS agent can use Amazon Bedrock for its intelligence. And I wrote this PR, so if you try it and it doesn't work, you know exactly who to shake your fist at. But please let me know, and I would be happy to help you debug any issues or answer any questions which you have around this. All right, so moving on from agents, and I want to talk about retrieval augmented generation. So as many of you probably know, what an LLM, when it's created, is frozen in time at that time where it was created. So it doesn't know anything that happened afterwards, right? And so that's where retrieval augmented generation really helps, because you can supply data to the agent or to the during inference for the agent to provide context around something that the agent may not know about, either because it happened after or it's private data, so it was never available for it to be indexed. And that's where Bedrock knowledge bases come in. So RAG really allows the agent to get data from your company data sources, and then it enriches the prompt with that data to deliver more relevant and accurate responses. And knowledge bases is a fully managed RAG capability that allows you to customize your foundation model responses with that contextual and relevant data. And where knowledge bases really help developers is it automates the entire end-to-end RAG workflow. So this includes data ingestion, data retrieval, and augmenting the prompt. And so this eliminates the need for writing custom code to integrate these data sources, to manage the queries. And again, it's something you can set up just from the console, where you click a few buttons, set your data source, and you have it go. So for example, you can have an S3 bucket with hundreds or thousands of PDF files, and maybe you want to make these available for your agent so that it can have more knowledge about whatever is in those PDF files. You set those in S3, you go through the console, you select that as your data source, and then you set a few other options, and then that now becomes available to your agent. So your agent can now query that data, and I'll get into how that works in a second. Cool. So when you're starting with knowledge bases, you start by selecting what vector store you want to use. So our default is Amazon OpenSearch serverless, but knowledge bases natively support Postgres with pgvector via Amazon Aurora. Also supports Pinecone and a couple of other ones. Or if you have an existing database, you can link it to one of those. So you have a lot of options when it comes to what vector database you want to use. We already talked about S3 as a data source. You can also use a web crawler. So if you want to crawl websites and set that on an iteration of crawling it every 5 minutes or something else like that, it'll pull that out and it'll pull all that data in, index it, and all of that is managed for you. You can also connect it with native connectors, which knowledge bases has. And that's typically more for enterprise data, but I just want to mention it here. Things like Salesforce, or if you're using Confluence or SharePoint, for example, you can connect those automatically and have those be available from your knowledge base. So once you've defined what your vector store is, once you've defined what your data source is, then you need to define the chunking strategy. And this is where the data itself, so if we go back to that PDF example, that PDF then gets chunked into many different chunks and added to the vector database. And there's a bit of trial and error with figuring out the right chunking strategy. And chunking is basically how many pieces you want to separate the document into, how much overlap you want to have within the chunks. Because remember, what we're trying to do here really is make it so that when a user queries or asks something related to this, the knowledge base will be able to retrieve from the vector database something that is relevant. And so we have some smart defaults, but you can play around with it and see if you're getting the results you want. And you can get even more advanced, where not just setting the chunking size, but you can actually go in and override the chunking itself. And an example here is if you want to add metadata to each chunk, right? So that could help with more semantic search, right? So instead of just indexing the content of the PDF, you can actually supply additional metadata about that PDF. And so that'll make it much more likely that it gets pulled in. All that to say, it's very easy to get this set up, but if you want to get in the weeds, you can also get in the weeds with a lot of this stuff. Cool. A couple more things. We continue to add new features to knowledge bases. Yeah, was there a question? No. All right.
There is a question from Mihai. He asked, can I return the logits probability for a prompt?
I'm going to ask to save questions till the end because I just want to have the presentation be unbroken, but I would love to answer that question at the end. And I forgot to mention this at the top. Thank you, Varsha, for speaking up there. Following this call, we're going to have some office hours. So that'll be a great time to ask questions like that or any other questions you have. So we continue to add new features to knowledge bases. Recently, we introduced Amazon Bedrock data automation, and that really helps you extract, transform, and generate structured data from multimodal content. And so all of that gets automated for you and made available into your knowledge base. And we also introduced Graph RAG, which, as the name suggests, is it makes your data available in a graph database. And so what that helps you do is start linking relationships for your entities across data sources. So instead of just having one view of your data here and one view there, you can start linking them together within a graph database. The last thing I want to touch on, not related to generative AI, but because it's a Ethereum hackathon, it's a blockchain hackathon, I want to share our public blockchain data. This is free data. It's available on AWS public data sets. And it's a continuously updated set of data across 7 blockchain networks. And the way to think about this is the data gets parsed from the blockchain. It gets put into an S3 bucket, and then you can access that data from your application. And the QR code here is a project that myself and Simon from my team worked on last summer, where it's essentially a text to SQL querying of this data. And so the way that works is you get your prompt from the user, your LLM. We instructed the LLM and made it aware of the schema that all the data abides by. And so then when the user prompt comes in, the large language model can say, okay, so the user wants to know how many Ethereum transactions there were yesterday, and it knows which columns in the database map to that type of question, and it constructs a SQL query, and then it goes and queries that. So if you're building something where you want your agent to be aware of historic data, this could be a great way for you to bring that information in there. Cool. And the last thing I'm going to leave you with is three QR codes here, and these are for helping you get started. So on the left is our documentation for Amazon Bedrock. It's pretty broad. I mean, as we saw here, we've got LLM inference, we've got knowledge bases, we've got agents, and so but that's a great place to start. If you like YouTube videos, we have a lot of YouTube videos there. That's the one in the middle. It's a step-by-step tutorial. And if you're looking for open source samples of examples of what projects have been built with Bedrock, that's the QR code on the right. It's a pretty broad set of applications and demos which have been built there. And with that, I want to say thank you for listening and watching. And yeah, let's turn it over to some questions if we have some.
Hi, Emil. It's Alex. I have a question. So I was looking on Bedrock yesterday, and as I understood, DeepSeek R1 is not available as a server in the serverless mode. Yeah. So we need just deploy it on SageMaker, which is expensive.
I saw that that it is available via Marketplace, which would require you then to run it via SageMaker as a just like I showed you in that screenshot where you can select it. So the AWS Marketplace is where our customers can offer their products and services, which then can run on SageMaker or EC2 or something else. That has nothing to do with Bedrock. Bedrock is completely separate from that. So Bedrock is a service which we run and manage ourselves. And so DeepSeek is available within that as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But you said in console, is it available where AWS SDK? So can I query it programmatically?
So Bedrock is available via the SDK. And I actually, you just reminded me of something. Okay, I take it back. This link on the left, that is the best place to start. I thought this would, it's different documents. It's a different page than I recalled. This is our developer center. I should just update the title so I remember what it is. It's our developer center for Bedrock. And that is the best place to start because it's got tutorials. It talks about the SDK and other things like that. So to answer your question, yes, you can use Bedrock via the AWS SDK. And when you're doing that, you can you specify the label for the large language model which you want to use.
But there I can specify only a model which available as a serverless, yeah, in the serverless mode.
Yes, there is no other mode for Bedrock.
So DeepSeek is not available as a serverless. So it is not available via SDK, correct?
If we go back and look at that slide, I'll be honest, I have not actually played with Bedrock DeepSeek, but if we look at this slide here, when you select DeepSeek here, this is in Bedrock. So all of this is serverless. So this should be available via the SDK, meaning you can already use the SDK to run any of these other models. And so to use DeepSeek or any other model, you basically just swap out the label which you're using for the model. Now, I haven't tried this out, but in the other models which I've tested with, that's how it works.
But what is the purpose then having this extra filter serverless? So so I tried to push serverless yesterday, yeah, and I didn't find DeepSeek there in North Virginia region.
Oh, I see what you're talking about up there. Okay. Yes, then I take it back. Then that is just available in the marketplace.
But is there any plan to include it as a serverless?
I don't know.
Got it. Thank you. Great presentation.
Oh,
Thank
I'd like
you.
to add on to that. So DeepSeek is available on Bedrock, but not on all regions. For instance, it's available in US West 2, but it's not available in US East 1.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
You know if that's serverless, Varsha?
Yeah.
Is that something you can find? Like, is that also through the marketplace though, or is that?
I'm looking at Bedrock. I think Alex was saying that he could find DeepSeek in Bedrock, and you wouldn't be able to see it if you're in US East 1, but in other regions such as US West 2, you'll be able to see it like this, like how you're showing it in the picture right now.
Yeah, so I think what Alex is saying is like if you can see my mouse up here, there is no serverless option for it. So you have to run it through Marketplace, which means you have to run it on SageMaker.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you have to run compute.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank
But
you.
maybe it's just because of region. Okay, so I will check.
Yeah. My guess is the region allows you to see what's on this screen here. Like if you're in a region where it's available, you will see what's on this screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll still be Marketplace.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Great. Any other questions? We got an open floor here.
I think Luis Angel has a question.
Okay.
I can read it for you.
Hello,
Oh,
Oh,
hello,
okay.
Luis.
I have mic. Okay, awesome. Uh, well, hello, Emil. Nice presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
Look, I'm a big AWS fan, to be honest.
Awesome.
So when I noticed that there was AWS Bedrock as an opportunity of integration within the projects, I was really interested into combining it with Coinbase Agent Kit. So my question
Hmm.
with this is, would you believe that I would have any caveats in terms of integration with them? Because I've noticed that Bedrock has these capabilities when it comes to the LLM processing and also the knowledge base, which is quite good due to the decoupling purposes. So I was really, well, trying to mix it out the opportunity of use that as the knowledge base processor over
Mm-hmm.
Coinbase Agent Kit, but I'm not too sure about how that could be well implemented.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with Agent Kit. I did read the docs to try to get an understanding of it, and the way I understood it was it's a very detailed instruction that is sort of optimized for one of the Claude models, I think. I forget which one it was. So what you could do as a very simple test is take what they have there and just provide that, or just use Anthropic on Bedrock and see if you get that to work. I guess is your question more like, would it work to use Agent Kit with Bedrock?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I mean it. I would imagine that they're open to sort of any provider, and so assuming that, then they kind of give you the prompt which you need. Again, just from browsing the docs, I haven't played around with actually trying to build Agent Kit, but it seems like you just take that prompt, feed it to your LLM, and then that has all the capabilities. What I'm not sure on is how you what they do for like the actual functions and how that would tie into like um, I guess you're not necessarily talking about using Bedrock agents, so then the functions wouldn't necessarily come into play there because you're only asking about the inference. So yeah, from an inference standpoint, it seems like it should work. I am not aware of anyone who has tried it, but I think that would be a really um, cool project if you can kind of build something with that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Emil.
Yep. Yeah, one thing, this is a uh, repo that I'm working on right now that hopefully will be published in a couple of weeks, but it basically equips an agent with a wallet, and the wallet itself is fully managed by AWS Key Management Service, KMS. And the great thing about that is you never have to manage private keys. You actually can't get the private key out of KMS, but any EVM compatible blockchain, you can easily spin up a KMS um, key for that agent, and then you can sort of instruct your agent to say, you know, to get your wallet, like get my wallet address, and then you just have a Lambda function that gets the KMS key, does the formatting to sort of figure out what the Ethereum wallet address is from that public key, but then you use that key to sign transactions. And so if you're thinking about like an automated agent that can go and invest in DeFi protocols automatically or autonomously without you having to prompt it every single time, that would be a super easy way to do it. Basically, create a KMS key as a wallet, send it some funds, and then just have it go and um, invest or do whatever it's going to do.
Awesome, got it. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
And then Mihai had a question earlier. Would you like to get on the microphone?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I had a quick question about whether you can return logits from a prompt. I think that's like part of the OpenAI API. So I'm not sure if you guys have included that. It might depend on the model or something. But my other question is, would you recommend fine tuning? I think that's part of Bedrock, but it feels like it would be a slower, more expensive approach to take for agents.
Mhm.
Would you just recommend RAG instead?
So for the first question, I'll be honest, I'm not familiar with logits. So can you just tell me a bit more about what that is?
Oh, like if you have a prompt, it'll give you it'll return like the probability of answering different
Oh,
pieces of text. So it'll return like the top 10 responses and give you the probability of each.
yes, yes. So there's a couple of APIs when you're invoking Bedrock models. There's retrieve and there's retrieve and generate. And the difference there is the second one will formulate the response for you. So it sort of figures out what the best result is from that. But the first one just sends you the results and then you formulate what the best response would be. I don't know if that's exactly what you're looking for there,
Yeah,
but
that sounds like good.
yeah, cool. And then what was your second question again?
Oh, would you recommend fine tuning for agents, or is that just
Oh,
too expensive and slow compared to RAG?
um, definitely do not recommend starting with fine tuning. I think a lot of what you would probably want to do can be fit into the context window. And so RAG, I forget how many hundreds or thousands of books, like the equivalent is that you can like feed it in a prompt. So I would always recommend starting with RAG, and then if it ends up not meeting your needs or something else, then you can go the fine tuning route. But that is a much heavier process to do that, and you don't necessarily gain much benefit in a lot of cases. Or I shouldn't say gain benefit, but you get the equivalent benefit by fine tuning as if you were just using knowledge bases itself. So happy to, like, if you start playing around with that and you're exploring it, I'm happy to chat more about that too. But I would definitely recommend starting with KBs and not fine
Yeah,
tuning.
I've heard similar advice, so that sounds bang on. Is there a type of RAG you would recommend would be best with code bases? Like, you mentioned was the chart RAG?
What chunk graph rag, you mean?
Graph RAG, yeah, sorry. Is that ideal for code bases because you could have linkages between files, or is there something else you'd recommend?
That's a good question. I actually don't know. Are you in the Discord?
Yeah, I can ask there.
Yeah, if you ask there, that'll just be a reminder that we can go and ask. It's a great question. I don't know what would be a great answer to that, but
And then there's one more question from Pilvi.
cool. Do you want to get on the mic?
Uh,
Or if
Is
you have the
that
question.
yeah, I could read it out.
Sure.
Oh, I'm here.
Oh,
Sorry,
okay.
sorry. So I wanted to ask, if you have for example, organization website and all the content and documentation over there might be a mess, kind of mess. When time goes by and people add stuff, it might be a mess sometimes, not always. I'm not referring to any organization here, but I'm quite experienced. Is it possible that AI agent would find the information for me and clean up the website and all the documentation and kind of get rid of junk and invalid info if it's kind of adjusted to work like that? I mean that it would be very interesting to have, when you have a wider perspective on this subject, you would have your private pool of information without any structure or organization, any structure, and you just put an AI to collect the information you need from your private pool, and on the other hand, it could even make searches in the web like it does right now. Did you get my point here?
I think so. I just want to confirm my understanding. So you're asking, can the agent make sense of a website that has some broken links and the text is kind of all over the place? And you're not asking, can you use the agent to sort of clean up the website and build it? Is that?
Yes, and make a searches for me so
Yes.
that I don't have to go through the organizational structure over
Yes.
there and
Yeah.
try to find some.
Yeah, that's exactly where knowledge bases with web crawlers would be very helpful there. Because essentially what you do, let me just change the slides so we're actually on something that's like a bit more relevant. What you would do is set up a data source for your knowledge base, and your data source would be a web crawler. And this is something you can do in the AWS console. And so you create a knowledge base, you select your vector store, and then you say, I want to crawl, I want my data source to be a web crawler, and you point it to your website, and you say sync, and then it goes and starts scanning that website, and that data gets pulled automatically and ingested into a vector database. And then on the other side, when a user makes their prompt, we convert that prompt into embeddings, and then we use embeddings to compare to the embeddings which were created when we ingested it from the website and matched in the vector database. And all of that stuff is handled for you in terms of the ingestion and all that stuff. So yeah, after this call, if you want to try it out, it is really just something you can do from the console itself.
Thank you. And think about the idea of private pool of information and data without any structure. You have all the information that is related to you and your life, and you are the owner of the data. And then you have this kind of AI crawler or whatever, and it's kind of making searches and taking care of this data. When you need something, you ask from AI to collect needed information, so that I don't have to be an organizer of my data and my information, but AI works for me.
You know what could be an interesting, simple way of doing that is, I mean, if your data is very unstructured, like say you have like for example, if you're making something about like you want to make a very personal agent, and you're like, I just want to put all my information, make it available privately, right? Like my tax documents, my birth certificate, like all this stuff, or CSV files of, I don't know, whatever you track in CSV files. You could put all of that stuff in an S3 bucket. And that S3 bucket can be scoped down to only you, or even less than that. You can make it only available to the knowledge base. And then as things get added to the S3 bucket, the knowledge base ingestion gets automatically triggered, and it pulls that new content in, it chunks it, it adds it to the vector database. And then from that point forward, that's available to the agent or the LLM inference. When you associate that LLM inference with a knowledge base, it can now start accessing that data. And so you would, assuming it's private data, we would need to think about how we restrict it to only that user. And this is something which I didn't talk about here, but with Bedrock, you can specify like a session attribute, right? And that session attribute, you can think of it as, hey, I authenticated and I proved who I was. And now for the duration of my Bedrock interactions, you can think of like a collection of key value pairs that get associated with every single request. And then you can start using those key value pairs to look at things like permissions. Say, hey, Emil logged in, but he shouldn't be able to access anyone else's S3 bucket except his. So.
Oh, great. I'm such a lazy person. I wouldn't like to spend my time with documents and structure in web. So that's why I'm asking this.
Yeah.
If there is this kind of simple and kind of nice solution for a lazy person like me. Thank you.
It's a great idea. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for the question. I think, Luis, I think you had your hand up first.
Yeah, my question is really similar from what she already asked. but in a different context. In my case, within my project, I want to have the opportunity to, let's say, get a feedback from the inputs of the user in order to extend my knowledge base. So I would like to understand that if I would like to, for the agents, whenever I create the prompt and so on, how do I could be able to obtain the data from either text or possible images and trying to make the interpretations of that? Because the main purpose of my application, just to give you context, is for veterinary healthcare, and it's often it's really often that whenever you have a veterinary talking to a pet owner, the pet owner not necessarily going to give you the all hints about what could be the possible diagnosis that pet has, because people tends to have mixed emotions and so on. So one of the things that those people try to do always is to stick around to and in my case, I see this as my possible knowledge base, a couple of prompts or questions regarding how the pet was before you actually noticed this situation. Did the pet was really sick or not, or things like that, you know? So yeah, I was wondering, how could I possibly receive more input data and try to well process that in the knowledge base in order to extend it? Do you have any recommendations in regard to that data source, or do you believe I would need
totally
to
follow.
index? Yeah.
When you say to get more input data, you mean like when a user is using it, like to prompt them for more information and then to add that to the K? Oh, like I see. So like building a profile of the user's pet, and then you can use that later on as part of.
Exactly. Yeah,
Oh,
the people that would use that later on would be the user veterinary in this case, as far as I see it.
yeah. It depends what you're looking to do with that data, because one thing to keep in mind is with all of this is relational databases are still really, really useful, right? And so as you're describing that use case, I could imagine that that information about the pet being stored in a structured database, right? Because when you're looking up that user's information, you always want that dog. You don't want like a similarity match where it's like a 99% chance could be that person's dog, or it might be someone else's totally, because that's not going to help anyone. So if you're looking to capture more information, I'd have to learn more about your actual application, but from what you described, you could look at just putting that in a, RDS, MySQL database, Postgres, something like that, DynamoDB, something very simple. And then when the user is interacting, you can bring that information in. And what I was mentioning earlier about the session attributes, you can even imagine that being added as part of the added to the Bedrock session, is like all this information about the pet. And then in your inference, you pull that information out. And now when you're querying your knowledge base, you can say, okay, give me common ailments for Chihuahuas, because you now know that the context is around a Chihuahua. So I don't know, hopefully that helps. It's, yeah.
Would you, I could ask you more questions in the Discord just to give Alex the opportunity to ask if I can.
Yeah, of
Awesome.
course. Yeah.
Thank you, Emil.
Yeah, Emil. Yeah, thank you, Luis. Emil, I wonder, is it such possibility to partitioning knowledge base? I mean, vector space. So from the documentation, there is an option to provide and do filtering by some meta information, meta data attribute. But it's only for RDS. As I know, serverless vector database is available only for OpenSearch. Is there an option? So my use case is that I create a knowledge base, yeah, and I should share it between users, but only after some I don't know, payments or so. So for example, I will go and see, okay, for this user, we have such number of vectors. Yeah, it's like white labeling or partitioning vector knowledge base.
So you would want the user to access some of the knowledge base, but once they've paid, maybe they access all of it? Or is it an all or nothing?
No. So there will be many owners. Each owner has its own knowledge base, sub-knowledge base, yeah? And they can sell this knowledge base between others. So when someone buy the knowledge base, it will be available for his search. So he can buy one or two knowledge bases, but all of them should be stored in one, I don't know, vector database. Yeah, so in open search or.
I guess my question is, why would they need to be in the same knowledge base?
Because I think it will be, so for example, if we will have 10,000 users, yeah, it's not good idea to create 10,000 instances of databases, yeah.
I see. Yeah,
Mhm.
I don't know the answer to your question. I don't know about partitioning, and especially where it's different based on different entities that are adding the data to it. If you don't mind, just writing up the question and posting it in Discord, we can look it up and get back to you. And yeah, and just as much as you can share about what it is that you're trying to do, I think will help. So you already described your use case, so that's very helpful.
Are you in Discord?
Yeah, in the partner AWS channel.
Okay, great. Thanks again. Thank you very much for the session.
Yep. Awesome. Any other questions?
I do have to pop in here. If you guys have any other further questions, we will have to direct them to the Discord. Unfortunately, we have a workshop coming up right after this. Otherwise, we could stay in here all day. Such incredible info from Emil Basil with AWS, teaching you guys how to build Gen AI applications with Amazon Bedrock. Emil, if you want to confirm, you will be in the Discord if people have direct questions for you.
Yes, myself and a lot of other folks from AWS. So.
Okay, incredible. We will see you guys over there in the Discord, and this video will also be available for you guys throughout the duration of the hackathon on our YouTube. That playlist is just right on the homepage of the ETH Global YouTube. So thank you again, Emil, for your time.
Yep.
Yes, and ETH Global, we are good to